Morning children. Today we are going to start a new chapter. This is actually your third chapter, electrochemistry. Now see here, electro, that is somewhere electrical energy, and chemistry, that means related to the chemical reactions. So you can say electrochemistry is the branch of the chemistry which deals with the study of the chemical changes which occur on passing electric current. You all know this phenomena we call electrolysis, or I can say, more precisely I can say, conversion of electrical energy to chemical energy into certain solutions, and also with the generation of electricity by carrying chemical reaction. That is, you already studied in your class 11th galvanic cells or a voltaic cells, in which some chemical reactions are going to take place and converted into electrical energy. So in very short and sweet I can say electrochemistry is the branch in which we are dealing with the two kind of energies. One is electrical energy and another one is chemical energy. When we are going to convert electrical energy to the chemical energy, we will call it the electrolysis, and the process, the vessel in which we carried out this process, that is called electrolytic cell. Second thing, when chemical reaction generate electricity, that is we call electrochemical cell. So electrochemistry majorly focus over the two energies. One is the chemical energy, second one is electrical energy. How chemical energy may be converted into electrical energy, and how the electrical energy is going to convert into the chemical energy, whatever is that. Okay, now before to start this chapter, I think you all know about the conductors. Nothing new in that. You all know substances, those who conduct electricity. Okay. Okay, conductors. As you all know very well, substances, those who conduct electricity. You all know, nothing new in it. Now solid conductors we can divide into the two parts. First is metallic conductors, and second one is substances, those who conduct electricity in their molten state or in their aqueous solutions. We call them electrolytic conduction. Solid conductors we can divide into the two parts, metallic conductors, and in metallic conductors the charge carrying particles, they are the electrons. Substances, those who conduct electricity in a molten state or in aqueous solutions, actually they produce ions. When you dissolve them in a water, they produce ions, and the flow of ions means the flow of charge, and flow of the charge is called electricity. So we will discuss about electrolytic conductance. Okay, substances, those who conduct electricity in their molten state or in their aqueous solution, we call them electrolytes. Now electrolytes are further classified: strong electrolytes and weak electrolytes. Okay, whom we say strong electrolytes? Substance, those who almost completely dissociate and they produces a large number of ions like NaCl, like H2SO4, like KCl, and you can find some more substances. Substances, those who almost completely dissociates, we call them strong electrolytes. Now substances, those who are dissociate to a very less extent, we call them weak electrolytes. Just an example, acetic acid. Now they all are electrolytic conductors because actually when you dissolve them in a water or when they are present in their aqueous solution, they produces ions, and the ions, they start moving toward the opposite electrodes and the electricity start flowing. Electrolytes classified in two categories. One we call strong electrolytes, one we call weak electrolytes. Now one more thing. Suppose NaCl. Now even in the solid state, NaCl already consists of Na plus and Cl minus ions. So can I say that NaCl is 100% ionized even in the solid state? Okay. Now when you dissolve NaCl into the water, now these ions are free and they separated to each other. So can I say the better word is here dissociation instead of the ionization? Because even in the solid state, NaCl already consists of ions. Actually, when you dissolve NaCl in water, you are only separating them. So better I can use a word here, NaCl is going to dissociate. I can't say that NaCl is ionized in water because there is no need of water. Even in the solid state, NaCl is fully ionized. But just think about HCl. Now HCl is a covalent compound. Now it's a covalent compound, there is no ion. But when you dissolve HCl in water, then it produces H plus and Cl minus ion. So I think here the better word is ionization. So there is a very small difference between the dissociation and ionization. They are basically little bit different. Dissociation word is appropriate when substance already consists of ions, you are only separating them. Some substances, those who are basically covalent in nature, they don't have any ions. When you produce them when you dissolve them in the water, then they produce ion. This is actually ionization. But ultimately in both of the cases, ions are going to produce. So at many places, I am also frequently going to use the word dissociation. But remember, there is a slightly difference between dissociation and ionization. Okay, again we come to here. Metallic conductors. As you know, in metallic conductors, the charge carrying particles, they are electrons. When these electrons are moving, when you are applying a potential difference, the electrons start flowing from the higher potential to lower potential as you studied in the physics. Now when these electrons are flowing, the vibratory motion of the kernel, these we studied in class 11, the metallic structures, the metallic bond. You know the metal consists of the positively charged kernels which are immersed in the sea of electrons. When the electrons are flowing, the vibratory motion of the kernel produces the obstacle in the path of the moving electrons. This obstacle we call resistance. Actually in the physics, this is a physics topic. Now when we are talking for electrolytic conductors, here the charge carrying particle, they are basically ions. So definitely anything which affect the mobility of the ions, this will somewhere create a resistance of my electrolytic conductors. Pause. Okay, as I already told you, the vibratory motion of the positive charge kernels, that is actually responsible for the resistance of the metallic conductors. But as you know, in electrolytic conductors, the charge carrying particle, they are ions. So anything which is going to affect the mobility of my ions, that will causes the resistance of my electrolytic conductors. Let's see what that factors are. The first factor, this is solvent interaction. Solvent interaction. Suppose I added any electrolyte in any medium who is highly viscous. Now it's a thing of common sense. If medium is more viscous, I think the mobility of the ions is going to decrease. So more the solvent interaction, the mobility of the ions will decrease, and definitely the less charge will be carried out in a unit time, and this will generate a resistance for my electrolytic conductors. Second, solute-solvent interaction. solute-solvent interaction. As you all know, in electrolytic conductors, the charge carrying particles are ions, and we also know that water is a polar solvent. So water molecules start aggregating around this ion. As you all know, this process is called solvation. Attachment of the solvent particles to the solute particles, this is called solvation. And I think due to solvation, I think the ions will become bulky, and if they become bulky, their mobility will be less. So more the solute-solvent interaction, there will be more resistance generated in my solution. The first factor is the solvent-solvent interaction. More the viscosity of my medium, less the mobility of the ions. Second one is solute-solvent interaction. As you know this phenomena, the attachment of the solvent particles to the solute particles, this is called solvation. More the solvation, your ions become bulky, and if they are bulky, their mobility will be less. The third, solute-solute interaction. Now solute-solute interaction that I already discussed, that my electrolyte is a strong electrolyte or a weak electrolyte. If it is a strong electrolyte, almost completely dissociate, produces a large number of ions, they will carry a more charge, and the resistance will be less and the conductance will be more. And if my electrolyte is a weak electrolyte, dissociate to very less extent, there are very less ions, very less charge to be carried out, and there will be more resistance. And the fourth and the last is temperature. As we are going to increase the temperature, all these factors are going to decrease. And if all these factors are going to decrease, then the resistance will decrease and conductance will be increased. This is the major difference between the metallic conductors and the electrolytic conductors. In metallic conductors, if you increase the temperature, the vibratory motion of the kernels will increase. And for metallic conductors, on raising the temperature, they are offering a more resistance. But in case of electrolytic conductors, all the factors, those who are generating resistance, they are going to decrease. So on electrolytic conductors, on raising the temperature, their resistance will decrease and their conductance will increase. Now for metallic conductors, you studied in the physics that the resistance offered by the metallic conductors is directly proportional to the length of the conductor, and resistance is inversely proportional to the cross section area. This is you studied in your 10th or 9th class in physics. The resistance offered by any metallic conductors is directly proportional to the length of conductors. Think about it, why I am saying this. And inversely proportional to the cross section area. Let me combine these two. So R is proportional to L by A. If we remove the proportional sign, we introduce a constant, and this constant we call resistivity, or we also call it the specific resistance. This is formula we derived in physics, where R is the resistance, rho is the resistivity or a specific resistance, L, this is actually the length of the conductor, and A is the cross section area. But in chemistry, we are more interested for electrolytic conductance. We are not interested in the resistance, we are interested in electrolytic conductance. Now the same is applicable for electrolytic conductors also, but only the resistance is replaced by conductance. So R will become 1 by R is equal to rho will become 1 by rho, and L by A will become A by L. This is the reciprocal of the resistance, which is called conductance. This is the reciprocal of the specific resistance, which is we call the specific conductance or conductivity. A. When suppose this is a vessel and this is a solution of an electrolyte, These two electrodes, suppose you inserted. Fine. Now they are fused or sealed in a glass tube, and this is the two circuit when you can connect them with any electrical source. These are the electrodes. Now in case of electrolytic conductance, the L is the distance between the electrodes and A is the cross section area of the electrodes which is in the contact with the electrolyte solutions. Again I make you one thing clear. This is I have written for metallic conductor that you studied in the physics. But in chemistry, when we are talking for electrolytic conductance, we are more interested in a conductance rather than resistance. So we make a reciprocal of it. So reciprocal of resistance will become conductance. Now the reciprocal of resistivity is conductivity, which is shown by a letter which is called kappa. Okay, this what is letters pronounced? Kappa. K-A-P-P-A, kappa. A and L. What is the A? The cross section area of the electrodes which is the contact, and L is the distance between the electrodes. So kappa is equal to conductance into L by A. Okay, now suppose I want to define this kappa. Then I will say the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and the cross section area is the 1 centimeter square. Suppose I keep this condition, L is equal to 1 centimeter. Actually in the SI unit we have to use actually meter, but in case of electrolytic conductors, meter is a too big unit, sorry. So instead of the meter I am using centimeter. So L is equal to 1 centimeter. This is the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and A is 1 centimeter square. So that time conductance is equal to kappa. So I can say conductivity or a specific conductance is equal to the conductance if the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and the area of cross section is 1 centimeter square. So kappa is equal to conductance into L by A. Let's see the units of kappa. Now conductance. Conductance is the reciprocal of resistance. Now the unit of resistance is ohm. So reciprocal will be ohm inverse or mho, or you can use Siemens. Siemens and we use S. So unit of the conductance, you can go for ohm inverse, you can write mho or you can write Siemens. Now L is the length, centimeter divided by centimeter square. So unit of kappa will be Siemens centimeter inverse. Okay, or you can write ohm inverse, centimeter inverse. Now again I am going to define this kappa. Again I will say L is equal to 1 centimeter, A is equal to 1 centimeter square, then conductance is equal to kappa. 1 centimeter square. Okay, if I keep this value, then kappa is equal to conductance. So I can say conductivity equals to the conductance if the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and the cross section area is 1 centimeter square. I can say conductivity is equals to the conductance if the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and the cross section area is 1 centimeter square. Now just think about this cubical vessel. Suppose I have taken this cubical vessel. Okay, here the edge length is 1 centimeter. Fine. So what is the cross section area of this face? 1 centimeter square. In the same way, the cross section area of this face is 1 centimeter square. Suppose I connected with any source of electrical energy, and here I have taken any electrolytic solution. Now you can see I am following all the definitions. The distance between the two electrodes is 1 centimeter. and the cross section area is 1 centimeter square. Now if I ask you what is the volume of this cube, then answer will be 1 ml. So instead of saying that conductivity is equal to the conductance if the distance between the electrode is 1 centimeter and the cross section area is 1 centimeter square, betterly can I say the conductivity is the conductance offered by 1 ml solution. A very simple short language, we can define it. Conductivity is actually the conductance offered by 1 ml solution. Because you can see here I am following the condition. Distance between the electrodes 1 centimeter square, cross section area of the faces is 1 centimeter square, and the volume of the cube is 1 ml. So I can say kappa, or a specific conductivity, is equals to the conductance offered by a solution whose volume is 1 ml. Okay? Okay, continue. Okay. Now to make all these measurements, to study all these experiments, the commonly used device, this device we call it the conductivity cell. Now this conductivity cell is made up of the Pyrex glass. In this you can fill up the electrolytic solution. These are the 2 electrodes which are made up of platinum, fine, and they are the sealed in a glass tube. So only this portion to be exposed. Now from here you can connect the electrical source. To make all such measurements, to study all these electrolytic conductance, the device that we generally use, this is called conductivity cell. Now this conductivity cell is actually made up of Pyrex glass, and in this the 2 platinum electrodes are inserted. Now important thing is that once we constructed this conductivity cell, it is not possible for me to change the distance between the electrode, or at the same time it's not possible for me to change the cross section area of my electrodes. It means for a particular conductivity cell, the L by A becomes constant, and that's why this is called cell constant. Okay, again I make you clear. Suppose in a lab I want to measure the conductance or conductivity of any solution. The device which we are going to use is called the conductivity cell. This conductivity cell, it is simple, a device which is made up of a Pyrex glass. The 2 electrodes of platinum already inserted in it. Now once the conductivity cell was constructed, we are not in condition to change the distance between them. It's not possible for me to change the cross section area in the contact. That means for a particular conductivity cell, the L by A becomes constant, and that's why this is called a cell constant. So again you can write conductivity is equal to conductance into cell constant. When we are doing the numerical, this formula will help us. Conductivity, this is kappa. Conductance, generally it is shown by C, or you can write conductance, no problem. And cell constant is a constant for a particular conductivity cell. Okay, now we are going to discuss about the 2 kind of conductivity. First is molar conductivity. Which is denoted by lambda m. Now this my lambda is different, the lambda which we are using. Now first of all, let's see how we can define a molar conductivity. Now molar conductivity, you can define it is simply a conductance offered by VML solution. Now in this VML, you dissolve the 1 mole of the electrolyte. Okay, now this solution whose volume is VML, you kept between the 2 electrodes which are 1 centimeter apart, and the cross section area enough to hold the entire solution. So I can say molar conductivity is the conductance offered by VML solution. Now in this volume, how much mole I dissolve? 1 mole. And I keep this solution between the two electrodes which are 1 centimeter apart, and the cross section area enough to hold the entire solution. So molar conductivity is the conductance offered by VML solution. Now VML is the volume in which 1 mole dissolve. I keep this solution between the two electrodes which are 1 centimeter apart and the cross section area enough to hold the entire solution. VML. Now remember here V is a specific volume in which 1 mole is dissolved. Where I kept this solution? In my conductivity cell, where the distance between the electrodes is 1 centimeter and the cross section area enough to hold the entire solution. So molar conductivity is equal to, recently I told you the conductance offered by 1 ml solution is called kappa. If you remember, conductivity is the conductance offered by 1 ml solution. Now this time what is the volume? VML. If 1 ml solution offered kappa, then VML will offer kappa into V. Okay, the conductance offered by 1 ml solution is kappa. Now this time the volume of the solution is V. If 1 ml solution offer kappa, then we will offer V into kappa, where V is the volume in which 1 mole dissolved. Remember this thing? V is the volume in which 1 mole dissolved. Okay. Let us assume the molarity of the solution is M. Let the molarity of the solution is M. Now if I am saying the molarity of the solution is M, it simply means M moles are present in 1000 ml of solution, but I have to find out the volume in which 1 mole dissolved. Again, I am assuming the molarity of my solution is M. It simply means M moles are present in 1000 ml. But V is the volume in which 1 mole dissolves. So since M moles are present in 1000 ml, if I am saying the molarity of the solution is M, it means M moles are present in 1000. But I have to find out the volume in which 1 mole is present. So 1 mole will be present in 1000 by M volume. Okay, so this value keep here. So molar conductivity is equal to kappa and the value of V is 1000 by M. So whenever you got a numerical to find out the molar conductivity, you can use this formula, kappa as usual conductivity into 1000 by M. Let's see the unit. Now unit of kappa is Siemens centimeter inverse. This is 1000 ml. ml means centimeter cube and divided by mole. So finally the unit will be Siemens centimeter square mole inverse. Okay, this is all about the molar conductivity.